LinkedIn, and we will get started here. So,
hey Gail, hey Val, who else we got? Kevin,
yeah, we are here. We are live on LinkedIn.
Gary
So,
Wood.
yeah, so people, if you're listening to us on LinkedIn, go ahead and comment. I'm going to be back and forth between the comments on LinkedIn, but we're going to take it over here today. So, welcome everyone for the Manufacturing Ecommerce Success Series today. I'm Damon Pistolka, one of your co-hosts, and my brother from another mother, Curt Anderson, way on the other side of the North America for me today, talking about some manufacturing topics and some great writing.
Absolutely, guys. So hey, welcome everyone. Gary, good afternoon. Guys, happy Fridays. You can tell that Damon, I have a picture. Usually I just have this plain boring background. I'm in the witness protection program somewhere in Ohio, some hotel. So guys, happy Friday. Damon's doing awesome. Guys, this is such an honor, such a thrill. I've been looking forward to this for months. I want to introduce my good buddy, Jim Vinoski. Jim, happy Friday, dude. How are you, man?
Yeah, happy Friday to you. I'm great. How are you, Curt?
Hey, I am doing awesome. So we have a lot to uncover. So we're going to dig right in. So Jim, you're long time career manufacturer, but more importantly, I did a little, Damon, I like doing a little cyber stalking on our guest.
Yep.
I did a little digging. So Jim,
wouldn't be the same without it.
Wouldn't be the same without it. So Jim, guys, what an honor and privilege to have Jim on the program. He's a contributing writer. I know I'm probably showing my age by saying right because we don't write anymore. Contributing typer. Is that what you say, Jim? So contributing author to Forbes magazine, BIZCATALYST 360, and you put out some incredible, wonderful pieces, and that's how you and I connected. And what I want to, first off, let's talk about Jim personally. So guys, he married the girl of his dreams. I saw on your bio, 2 growing young boys. You're a scoutmaster. You're in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Give us a little background. I know you're a mechanical engineer by trade, if I'm not mistaken. Share a little bit of your background, and then we're going to take it from there.
Yeah, you already ruined one of my points. I was going to say I come from my podcast studio from my newly launched Manufacturing Talks podcast from sunny Burbank, but you pinned me down. I'm right on the outskirts of Grand Rapids.
Yeah, sunny Grand Rapids, man. It's a beautiful place. So it is sunny today. Podcasting, Manufacturing Talks.
Yeah.
So I know. So writing. So you're all about content, right? About manufacturing.
Right. Yeah, I just told someone recently that you hear these people saying about having a plan for where you want to get in your life, and there is no way anyone's going to come up with the plan that got me here. So 30 plus years in manufacturing, busting my tail on the floor. I've never left the floor. I still work on a manufacturing floor routinely. But a few years ago, I had the opportunity to take writing, which I've done my entire life and enjoy greatly, but never really pursued professionally. I've had pieces published here and there, whether it was trade journals or more general magazines and things. And then I get on LinkedIn, which we all love, one day, and a contact of mine shares a post from a contact of his saying, I'm looking for someone for a client of mine who needs someone who can write magazine length articles about manufacturing. If you're interested, here's my email address. So I'm like, well, that sounds like a good fit for me. So I send her an email like, hey, here's my background. Sounds interesting. I'd love to learn more. And I get an email back within an hour saying, well, I checked out what you have on LinkedIn and it's fabulous. So I'm just copying this editor at Forbes and you two take it from here.
Nice.
So my immediate response is, that's never going to happen. But sure enough, I get in touch with the editor and we go through a few samples and discussions, and next thing you know, I'm writing for Forbes.
Oh man, and what an illustrious career that you've had. I know Prina, you were with Prina for a while. General Mills. I actually saw you were actually at Orchard Park, New York, which is near me. Hometown of the Buffalo Bills. My buddy Gary Wood's in Rochester, so you're in Buffalo Bills country there at Orchard Park. So
sure enough,
long time career, Fortune 500 companies, and you find yourself, how do you make that pivot? How do you go from mechanical engineer, like you said, on the shop floor? Just just share it. Go a little deeper into like that process of it's such a 180, isn't it?
Yeah, although. The things I thought would be difficult turned out not to be difficult at all. So the immediate thought when I got into it was, well, how the heck am I going to come up with ideas for articles? I had a number of them myself that we talked about when my editor and I went over what I'd be doing. But, if you're writing several a month, you go through those pretty quickly. And I'm actually pretty consistent on 5 articles a month. But what I found is once your name's out there with Forbes, now people come banging your door down.
Yeah.
And as you guys know, there's not enough time in a lifetime to tell even a fraction of the cool stories in manufacturing.
Yeah.
And so once those people start coming and they're wanting me to share their amazing stories all over the map of manufacturing, the topics get easy. Now it's just a matter of cranking out the articles.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and Jim, you do an amazing job. You truly have a gift for storytelling. You really do.
You.
So all of us want to thank you for leaving the shop floor and sitting down at the computer and, now being the reporter for all these incredible manufacturing stories. And I think, all of us on the call today, there's a huge renaissance in U.S. manufacturing, and having you on the team and being a voice and advocate to share these incredible stories. You cover, a lot of success stories, 3D printing, e-commerce, all sorts of AI, all sorts of fascinating things. And I'll tell you also have a gift for headlines, man. I have to give you credit. Guys, I dropped Jim's LinkedIn profile in the chat box. You have to connect with Jim. And when you connect with Jim, in his featured section on his profile, he has a bunch of his Forbes articles. I dropped 2 that we're going to be chatting about today. But I just want to share a couple of headlines that you have. Coolest airplane you've never heard of. Sport where every kid could turn pro. Space trucking. I mean, these are just such great, headlines on your LinkedIn profile. Damon, I don't know if you saw this. He has followed by everyone that is cool.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Did you see that? So then,
well, that's why I follow him.
That's why you follow. Hey, everybody on
Not that I'm cool, but he's cool.
Hey,
so let me jump in too. I mean, especially for manufacturing folks, follow is always great, but I love connecting with people directly. I have follow as my primary, but on LinkedIn, you push the 3 buttons and you can get over to the connect piece. Feel free to do that, everyone out there.
So definitely connect. And Jim, one of my favorites here, and Gal, you'll love this one. Former fashion model designed concealed carry running shorts for women. I mean, dude, what a awesome. How, just share a little bit, how do you uncover, and again, we have a couple stories that are coming at everybody. How do you find some of these wonderful stories that you uncover here?
Yeah, so a lot of them come from PR people. It's a little known fact. Everyone who's out there is needing that attention. And so they will engage with folks to go look for avenues to get their name into the press and into the digital world. And so I just get pitches constantly. In fact, I don't wish it away at all, but that's my number one challenge is managing my inbox because it's 20 to 50 pitches a day.
Yeah.
But then too, you mentioned the fashion model, Amy Robbins, she came to me directly. In fact, I'd been following her for a while and had her on my list. And she reached out to me before I had a chance to reach out to her. And she just said, "Hey, I see you write for Forbes and I'd love to have this attention. Any chance you'd tell my story?" I'm like, "I already had you on my list. Yeah, let's chat."
Yeah, I'm already ahead of you. I'm right there. So how do with all that overwhelming, inquiries and offers, how do you filter out which where you feel are these are great stories versus the not so great?
See, that's where I get to have the big head. Anything that sounds cool to me, I figure has got to be cool to everybody.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Amen. Hey, and you know what? We're gonna get T-shirts, Damon. Say, hey, if it's good for Jim, it's good for everybody.
Yeah, there you go. If it's good for Jim, it's good for everyone.
It's good for Jim. It's good for everybody. So Jim, let's dive right into a couple of your stories. So one that really tugs my heart. I'm in Ohio. My daughter is a figure skater. And I'm here for a figure skating competition. And man, they timed it perfect. She skated this morning, and then they saved it till this afternoon. Our show was so big, they knew that I couldn't be there in the middle of it.
There you go.
Wasn't that nice? So as a figure skating dad, I live at the skating rink, Jim, and I understand. I don't understand. You wrote an amazing piece. Anybody here that hangs out at a skating rink, are very familiar. Damon, you guys in Seattle just landed, professional hockey team, the Kraken. And what clears the ice in between periods? The Zamboni. Yep. Dude, you wrote an amazing article. And again, I dropped it in the chat box on the history the Zamboni, I always thought it was just a name. It was a person. It was the person that founded it. It was Frank Zamboni.
Yep.
Jim, how did you come across that story? What a fascinating article.
So that was unique. Again, on LinkedIn, I've got a buddy, Jesse Cook. He's in Buffalo. He's a lawyer.
Nice.
But he's a history buff, and I am too. And at some point we connected because I started seeing some of his posts, and he just does general history. I'm probably the same big head thing that I have. What's cool to him is cool to everybody, and he does have very cool stuff. Well, I think it was late last year, early this year, he posts a thing. It was Frank Zamboni's birthday, and so he posted a thing about the company and about Frank, and just a long piece. And I commented, I'm like, that is too cool. I have got to put that on my article list. Right. Another guy I know who's a PR guy out in LA immediately comments and says, look, I don't rep the company, but I know the family. And so if you're really interested, I can connect you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And of course I say, yeah, right away. And he gets a hold of me. We're on email together. And he's like, I just got to warn you, they're very careful about who they talk to. So I'm pretty sure I can connect you, but it might take some time. So weeks go by, and the next thing you know, he's got me connected up with a couple of their folks just to have a preliminary chat on what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And it was funny because you could tell they were very standoffish at first.
Yeah.
But you know what I do? I just tell the cool stories exactly as they present them. The stories themselves are too cool for me to add to or change in any way. And by the time we got done talking, they're like, okay, yeah, we got to get you connected with this guy and this guy and this guy. I wound up talking to people with Zamboni Company all over the world. They're fabulous people. I mean, that was just an honor to have their story and to be able to tell it, through the way they wanted to be perceived. And they're very right. Because it's a tough business. There are other ice resurfacing machines. In fact, you can't say Zamboni from now on, Curt. You have to say the Zamboni machine.
Okay.
Because if you say just Zamboni, it's like Kleenex. You can lose.
Right. That's perfect. Exactly right. And
and they were just phenomenal.
And that's so incredible to be able to share just such a legacy story as that.
Yep.
I mean, a legacy story, because everybody, even me, who has spent 10 minutes on the ice, other than falling down on a lake in the Midwest, compared to other, a few hockey matches, but everybody knows what a Zamboni machine is.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that name and
for years and years and years.
And again, the when you think about how cool what we try to preach, Jim, how cool manufacturing is. Prior to the Zamboni, people were using shovels. So here's a great story. So years ago, a lot of we frequently go to we're in New York City for Christmas. My sister's there, and my daughter is figure skating at Rockefeller Center. The Zamboni machine broke. We're at probably the most popular skating rink in the world.
Yeah.
And there's a guy with two shovels in each hand going around scraping the ice. It was absolutely hysterical. But the Zamboni machine changed hockey.
That's right.
In your article.
That's right.
Why there's 3 periods in hockey is because the Zamboni machine comes around. And what really got him off the ground, this is a great story. There was an Olympic skater from Norwegian. She was Norwegian.
Yep.
Big skater from Norwegian. Came to LA where the Zamboni was, saw the machine. She was traveling in the United States, performing. She had him bring the machine with so he could clean the ice. And that was a huge PR where now every city that they went to, everybody saw that machine. Now everybody wanted that machine. And so again, guys, check out that article. We're going to dig into a bunch more fun stuff. Jim.
I will say one more thing about that. The one person that is allowed to say just Zamboni is Charlie Brown, because at one point in the Peanuts strip, which featured Zamboni several times, he says it might have even been one of the other characters, but someone said, there are 3 things everybody loves to watch: campfire, a babbling brook, and a Zamboni.
Hey, I agree 100%. So, Jim, and you know what? And I did know that you're a huge World War II buff, and I also saw that you're an 80s metal band buff. So At the end of the program, Damon, we might have a little, first time on our show, stop being a best kept secret here. We might have a little trivia at the end. So I'll save that. You guys got to stick around to the end for a little trivia.
Beautiful.
I will. One thing for Jim, if you've not been to the World War II Museum in New Orleans, definitely. I spent about 8 hours in the darn place, and it is so incredible.
I have not. I've heard that from other people.
It is so incredible.
And the D-Day Museum in Virginia is phenomenal, right near Roanoke. So anyway, we'll move. Let's dig in. So you wrote a great piece on e-commerce, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Could you please share, and you know where we're going with this, the DIY, share a little bit. And this is a great e-commerce story of a company, man, that was in deep, deep trouble.
Right.
40% of their business went away overnight, and they made a great transition, direct to consumer. I'll leave it there. Jim, please take the baton, dude.
Yeah. So a company called Versatube that makes DIY storage sheds. And they had their stuff in stores, and it was going okay. And then they lost an account, and all of a sudden, like you said, their business is in big trouble. There was a guy who really wasn't involved in the business, but he was involved in creating some e-commerce solutions, and they heard about it, connected up with him. They actually made him the president of the company for a while. And he developed, kind of layering on to what he had already come up with, developed for them an e-commerce, direct to consumer solution so that people can just get on their website, basically design their thing, place an order, and then it just all automatically happens. So it's all tied in with their manufacturing, with their production, with their, putting instructions together, everything. And so you wind up getting delivered the kit for what you ordered, and you put it together, and you have exactly what you designed right there on their website. Wow. And so sales skyrocket for these guys, and they're just off to the races. And now Dusty Dean, who put that all together for him, he's still involved. I believe he's a board member for the company, but now he's off continuing his work on developing those kinds of solutions more broadly. I'm actually looking at having him on my podcast.
Are you phenomenal? So I want to dig deep into that. And so we have a gentleman on with us today. We have Kevin from Gen Alpha. There you are, Kevin. And so Gen Alpha is an amazing, incredible company in Wisconsin. They are e-commerce solution provider for manufacturers, and they offer configurators. And why I want to dig in, I want to dig into this story a little deeper. Mm-hmm. So again, their supply chain, distributors, so on and so forth. Big bulk of their business was with one customer. If I understand the story correctly, they were bought out. New owners came in and said, you know what, we're going to do this process ourselves. So thank you, but no, thank you. We no longer need your services. Yep. And so they go on their own. So these guys are like, now what do we do? When they take on their product, this is a multi-$1,000 purchase, correct? The carports. So it's a multi-$1,000 purchase. They go on e-commerce and then they put on a configurator. Right. And we preach about configurators constantly. I think like enter your zip code, enter your size, you could enter everything, right? Was that right, Jim? How that configurator worked? Yep. And then when you entered your order, it went right to the shop floor, Damon. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, they made it as efficient as humanly possible.
Just streamlined the whole process.
Streamlined the whole situation. The consumer is thrilled, right? Now I don't have to go to Home Depot or wherever to purchase it. I can make it right online, custom for myself. Yep. Direct to me. Mm-hmm. I pull out a credit card. Now this company, they are paid not before they ship it, before they even make the product.
That's right.
I mean, look at that for cash flow, guys. Like, is that just music to your ears? So, I mean, look at the power of e-commerce, that configurator, direct to consumer. And a lot of people are like, people aren't going to, we sell, Damon, we heard all the time, we sell things in the thousands. They're not going to buy this product. Man, we might have to repeat what we just said. Did Chris Harrington just join us? Oh, Chris, I've been giving you a shout out, man. So we're talking configurators. We're talking about e-commerce with Gen Alpha and this great product. Sure, look, and Dusty Dean, Damon, we've connected with Dusty. Yep. Dynamic, passionate, e-commerce group for manufacturers. How were they? Can you share a little bit like how these folks maybe out of desperation, what allowed them to take on this whole process or going into configurators? How deep does that story go on your end?
So I don't know all the details. I do know this: when they lost the account, they took a step back and looked at, what's working, what's not working. And obviously one big thing is having so many eggs in one basket. So they're thinking, how do we get beyond these big box stores? And they start looking at how all that works, talking to customers. And the thing that came through to them really clearly is it doesn't matter how many of those stores you're in. The trouble is there's such a limited contact between your product and the customers. And especially for these guys who are doing these big buildings, even the smaller storage sheds are pretty good size. You're only going to have one or two examples at the shop, at the store. Yeah. And so customers don't have that interaction. They don't realize, geez, I've got this whole line of things and you can customize and all of that. You steer them to e-commerce. Now you can show them right up front, look, here's everything we have and here's how you can configure it for yourself. And oh, by the way, it's not going to be trying to talk to someone who doesn't really know about these things and trying to cajole out of them and more information about the company and the product. It's all right there at their fingertips. It walks them through, like you said, even just the entering basic information, and just makes it super easy for the customer. And then essentially, shows their entire product line. And so anyone looking for that kind of solution now knows, this company can help me.
Yeah, and Gary, our friend in Rochester, drops a couple of comparables. Like Michael Dell did the exact same thing way back in the day, very much ahead of his time, cutting edge, where I can go on Dell, order that computer, and again, make it easy. Gary says, make it easy as humanly possible to do business with you, and that's what we preach every week, Jim. Is e-commerce, these configurators, how we can make it so easy for the consumer to do business with you.
Well, and so that's a phenomenal example. But that's one example, right? And so we in manufacturing, we've got literally countless different business models. And so the key is exactly what those guys did up front, which was to look at, okay, what, first of all, who's our customer and what are we doing well for them? What aren't we doing well for them? And one thing that I've kind of gotten a bad taste in my mouth about here in the last year is there's so much talk about Industry 4.0 and digitalization. And that's all phenomenal. I mean, that's going to be, we're only scratching the surface on what that's going to bring. But I see so many people out there, to me, being completely self-serving and saying, oh, you have to have this automation or you have to have these devices, and just selling their own thing. That's the solution for everybody. Even like the World Economic Forum and their lighthouse plants. Those are phenomenal. Yeah. But they're not the solution to even a tiny fraction of manufacturers. And so really dialing in on what can digitalization, what can Industry 4.0 bring to your business model for your customer, and then honing in on what the solutions are. To me, that's the key.
Well, it's one of the things that we see a lot and we cover when we do training or talking to people is really bring awareness about what you can do with different things, right? Mm-hmm. So that the business people can then decide, I want this piece, that piece, that piece, because we see the same thing in anything digital or even so if I'm a great web developer, well, you've got a web development problem because that's what you've got, and you probably do some, but is that really what you should work on now? Mm-hmm. And when you look at something like Industry 4.0 or the digitization of a business, where do you really start? Yeah. And what do you do? What's step 1, step 2, step 3, and where do you find those? That's the bigger question for businesses right now.
Right. I've had a couple of phenomenal conversations lately. One was an article I had maybe a couple months ago that featured the Siemens digitalization group, industrial digitalization. Cedric Nicky, their CEO of that portion of their company. I just love this guy because, he should be out there selling his stuff, and he is. Don't get me wrong, but our discussion was specifically around that hey, it's not about devices and automation. It's about, and for him, it was data. What do you have to glean from your data to better serve your customer? And so he's saying, you got to take a look at your operation from one end of your supply chain to the other, all inclusive, and determine where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck to help your customer, your consumer. And then how do you manage that data? How do you get the data you need? How do you filter it right? How do you get the information out of it that's critical? And that's the trouble, is we're all swimming in it, right? There's far too much data and far too little practical manipulation of it.
Right. That and that was another phenomenal piece. And again, for anybody who just chimed in, I dropped Jim's LinkedIn profile in the chat box. I have a couple articles. The article that we're talking about, the Zamboni machine, awesome article. Another article about that transition for this company that was really in deep trouble. Plunge in e-commerce, and Jim, 135% increase through COVID, right? Past $50 million in sales, absolutely crushing it. And again, you know, whether you're as a manufacturer, you're on the B2B side, or there is an opportunity to go direct to consumer, there's just powerful solutions. Again, you're mentioning your Siemens story. If you check out Jim's, please connect with Jim, and you go in the featured section, you had a great story about somebody uncovered a bunch of like amazing pieces in Youngstown.
Oh yeah.
Right. Share a little bit on that story. That was another great piece.
Right. Yeah. So I got, again, God bless LinkedIn, got connected to this artist in Pittsburgh. And he says, you know, this is kind of out in left field, but it strikes me that this would be your kind of story. And yeah, so he shared how he and one of his new friends who has his own steelmaking museum, kind of came together right as this other guy had gotten wind from just someone who was in his museum about, hey, these forms that you have, these wooden casting forms for sand casting, I know where you could probably get about 6,000 of them. And these things date back to the late 1800s, early 1900s. Phenomenal handcrafting of these wooden forms that they use to create the molds that then you make the steel components out of, whether they're gears or wheels or whatever. And so this guy gets his new buddy, the artist, and he's like, maybe there's something here you can use. I don't know. They go out to this barn outside Youngstown. The guy wasn't lying. It was literally 6,000 of these things, ranging from you know, normal size like gears and wheels to just ginormous, you know, screws and
oh my goodness.
Yeah, just things for making steel parts, literally at the earliest of the Industrial Revolution. And so then they have the challenge of, number one, how do we get all these things into a space where they're going to be protected still? You know, fortunately, they were in this barn. The guy who collected them all from a shut down steel mill in Youngstown, and his widow said, yeah, you can take them. And it's just, you know, I talk about my story being so crazy. I always say it's the hand of God that got me doing what I'm doing. I think it was the same thing with these guys, because it just so happened that the artist, Corey, had just moved into a new space, huge space in an old industrial building in downtown Pittsburgh. And he says, you know, you can probably fit a bunch of them in my space, and then let me ask around and see if we can get some more. He goes to the owner of the building, and the guy's like, well, I've got a whole floor. You can just take it. So now they've got this permanent exhibit of these things. I had a show here a week or two ago to introduce it. And now, yeah, go to Pittsburgh and check these things out. They're just absolutely breathtaking.
That is awesome.
Wow.
And and there's just so many amazing stories, you know, and we could go on and on, you know, with different stories. I want to share another one. Battle. Is it Battle of the
Battle Motors?
Battle Motors. Thank you. So a company that's converting garbage trucks from gas engines, diesel engines into electric engines. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And it's an interesting story too, because it's another one of those where this guy who really wasn't in the business winds up owning the business. So my contact was a guy who was in battery development, worked for a company that was doing that. And he kind of got to where he had taken it to where he wanted to as CEO, and he was ready to step away, and got looking around at next opportunities and came across Battle Motors, who've been in the garbage truck and other heavy duty industrial truck business for 70 years, I think it is. Started right after World War II, in fact. And he gets involved with them. He winds up buying the company and then pivots and says, okay, let's start looking at this technology. Talk about a perfect application for the EV concept. You know, these things are out there just during the day. They sit at night. That torque piece that EVs bring to vehicles, so important for heavy duty trucks like that. And so just this marriage that was perfect. And so, they still make their old highly respected fueled vehicles, but they're building that business for the EVs. And, you know, with all the mandates now, especially with the cities wanting to get rid of the pollution and move in a more sustainable direction, I think they're going to grow like mad.
Yeah, even when you think about the duty cycle of, you drive someplace a little bit and you stop and there's
Right.
nothing happening. That's when the power shuts off, and then you just need it to go again. And only when the hydraulics turn on and off, you're running that. Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And just, livability of cities. You think about that, you can not be a zealot about electrification and still appreciate that. Yeah, running an electric motor on that thing makes a whole heck of a lot of sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Some
Very
amazing
cool.
stories. I want to drop a few hellos. We got John in Jersey. Scott, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
Diane, hope you're doing great. I think Diane's dad had surgery. Hope your dad's doing great. We've got Diana was on, just jumped off. Gary, Kevin, everybody, happy Friday. Thank you for joining us. We are with Jim from, he's a contributing writer. And I guess I can't say writer anymore. Contributor to Forbes magazine, right? So, Jim, and I know we're coming after too, man. I know we could talk about these stories all day. Share a little bit, like what are any without giving away any secret sauce, any kind of like what are you seeing hot trends? There's a myth. I don't know if you can. Damon and I've been hearing this rumor. I don't know if it's true. Supply chain issues. Are there any or
someone said something about it once.
Shortages. I've been hearing some. No, I'm just teasing. But what are you? John. So what are you looking forward to on 2022? What type of stories are you looking to cover? Any trends or anything that our audience here, any nuggets that you can share on what you're seeing in the forefront of manufacturing now?
Well, to tie a bow on the previous conversation with the digitalization stuff, I've got one coming out in the next couple of weeks. I've done a number of articles about applications that Autodesk has supported. Everything from the bicycle crank arm redesign article I had a couple months ago to Leica Studios, who knew that a movie studio would use what we think of as manufacturing design tools, but these tools go way beyond manufacturing, I learned. And so I'm writing a catch-all piece on Autodesk and everything they have going on, looking at those different elements that they have, different software suites and things, but with an eye towards saying, okay, what is it that Autodesk is up to here? And it's exactly what we've been talking about. They're trying to bring all these disparate things that they've either developed over the years or purchased, and they're bringing them onto a common digital platform. And it's just phenomenal. I mean, they're going to continue to do well. I mean, they've grown like mad. I remember starting up 30 years ago when I was first getting started, and it's amazing where they've come, and it's going to be amazing where they go. The supply chain piece, interesting you touch on that, because I had some, I'm always trying to stay ahead on my publishing calendar. You can imagine juggling that. But every so often I'll drop one in there just that's personal interest. And just in the last couple of days, I decided, you know what? I wasn't going to touch the supply chain thing. Obviously, it's talked about incessantly. But as I've read about it, there's so much being said that's just utter nonsense.
Yeah.
It's real. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's real now. I don't think it's getting better anytime soon. I don't think the doomsday stories are right, but I don't think the quick fix stories are right either. So I'm going to drill into, what's really happening here. If you've got ships, 80, 100 ships parked off Long Beach, probably not because China's not making enough stuff, right?
Yeah.
And yet you constantly read stories, the problem's in China. Well, China has problems, that's fair, but that's not the problem.
Right.
So we'll drill into that a little bit. There's just all kinds of cool stuff.
Okay, awesome. So, Damon, I'm going to change gears on you. So, first off, again, guys, connect with Jim on Forbes. If you have Gail, Gail, did you have an awesome program yesterday or what? You guys have some cool cutting edge stories that just fit the mantra here for Jim. Connect with Jim. I know Jim, I don't mean to hey, Curt, slow down, dude. I get overwhelmed, but man, we have some really cool people on the program here. They have some really cool. So I'm going to do, before we close out, I'm going to do a little trivia, Jim. All right. Yep. So you're World War II buff and you're an 80s metal band fan. Do I have that correct? Is that
correct?
Okay. So I'm going to read a quote, and I'm going to, is this 80s metal band, or is this a quote from I know you're a World War II fan or buff, if you will. Okay. So here's a little quote. Ready?
Yep.
Where do we go? Where do we go now? Oh, where do we go? Where do we go now? Where do we go? Where do we go now? I, sweet child of mine. Is that or is that 80s hair band? What?
That was an 80s band, but I think they could well have been talking about World War II.
Yes.
Little Guns and Roses for you there.
Yeah.
Mine. So, but
that's
anyway,
going back right to the beginning of my career too.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I was a senior in college for when that came out. We're like, hey, who's this band, right? Damon, you were a Guns N' Roses, weren't you? So, who was it? So
absolutely.
Well, and also, I want to share a quote with you, and then we'll get winding down. So so what's fascinating, guys? Again, if you came in late, Jim has been a career manufacturer and took a massive pivot during his career. So admirable, just such an inspiration. And again, gifted writer, storyteller, and sharing amazing stories about manufacturers on Forbes. Jim, you could have stayed the course. I'm sure, mechanical engineer, you're getting promotions. You could have stuck it out, right? Am I correct with that? Could have had a really nice career. Huge pivot by sharing these incredible stories that now we can cherish and find out all these great things going on in manufacturing as you're an advocate. I'm going to share a quote with you that I feel fits perfect here. You ready for this one? So once, twice, or at the very most 3 times in your life, fate will reach out and tap a person on the shoulder. Do you know where I'm going there? If that person has imagination, they will turn around and face fate, and and fate will point out which fork to take in the road. If that person has guts, they will take that road. How is that for a quote? General Patton, I found that for you. I thought I would share that with you. You are such an amazing, incredible inspiration, dude.
That's awesome. But I have to jump in here, Curt, because
please.
I mean, I deeply appreciate what you're saying about me. But what it brings me to is a conversation I had just a week ago. I am going to have an article. Another one that's coming up that I think is going to be a good story is about a U.S. Navy admiral who now makes bourbon.
Yeah.
So I get on the phone with this guy, and Scott, Admiral Scott, his first name Scott. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to tell you straight up front. I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've talked to an admiral.
Yeah.
And Scott says, well, you know what? Thank you, but I'll tell you, don't tell my wife that you're impressed with it because she's not.
Well, hey, we're easily impressed. But no, in all seriousness, dude, I loved your work, love what you're doing. So thrilled that you and I connected. We have a couple folks. Gary just dropped a note. Go Navy. Gary, thank you for your service. Our dear friend Chris served in the military. Chris, we love you dearly. Jim, I strongly encourage you and Chris Harrington to connect at some point in time. Gail, you guys need to connect with Jim at some point in time. So, Jim, parting thoughts, anything I know you have a podcast, you have a blog, you're crushing it on Forbes. Anywhere else dude, you're everywhere. Where else are we going to find you next?
Well, if you want to know, just go to jimvinoski.com, newly launched website where it collects everything.
Very good.
There's only a few articles on there. Eventually, I'm going to have everything I've published on that website. So, especially like poking around at Forbes, unfortunately, unless you're a huge fan of Forbes and you're subscribed, you can only read 4 articles a month. So the beauty is I own my articles. So now with the old ones, I'll be plugging those in on my website, and you can poke around there and see all these cool stories that I've had the privilege to help tell. And I've got Manufacturing Talks. It's both a YouTube channel and a podcast. So you can find that on my website as well.
Awesome. Well, hey, we've got a lot of folks on here that would be amazing guests. And, Damon, our dream was always make it on that Forbes 400 list. This is about as close as I'm going to make it. Partnering up with Jim here. When I was in my 20s, man, every year I had that thing memorized. I'm like, well, I don't think I'll make it in this lifetime. But anyway, so we get to connect with you, Jim. So, hey, Jim, we want to thank you. We know you're super busy. Thank you for sharing your time, your passion, your expertise. Deeply appreciate what you're doing for manufacturing. We're bringing on a big manufacturing renaissance. So thank you for playing your part and your role. Guys.
Well, let me return the compliment. This show is awesome. I love it. I'm definitely going to be tuning in regularly. And I'm just glad that you and I got connected and I had the opportunity to do this. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you, dude. Well, God bless you, man, for all that you do. Damon, let's, what do we got going on Monday? We're interviewing Matt from Catalyst Connection. He's with the Pittsburgh MEP, totally cutting edge. So we have some fun things going on next week. So
Yep.
we'll take it. Damon, you're going to be back in action with us next week. So
Yep.
guys, thank you. Have an awesome, incredible weekend. We're going to be back crushing it on Monday. Jim, thank you, brother. And join us at the table so you guys can meet Jim. Let's do it.
All right, everyone. Thanks again. Thanks to Gabe and Jabon. If I'm not saying your name right, I apologize, but for joining us there on LinkedIn, dropping some comments and listening to us there. We are here every Friday, 10:30 to 11:30 Pacific time, talking with great guests like Jim today. Awesome, Jim. That's all I can say. And we will be back again. We're going now to Remo. You can join us on Remo. Just look at my post. You can go there and you can be here, talk to people, network, and meet our speakers. So dropping off of LinkedIn, going back to Remo. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. Let's see it. Here we go. Boom.